The episode kicks off with an extraterrestrial life form roughly the size of your dad's contribution to the gene pool, self-identified as MuMu, initiating a research mission targeting the third rock from the sun, Earth. Before starting, it toggles its ultra-high-spec interface to something more manageable. Then, chaos. MuMu suddenly detects a system failure. The controls are toast, and the ship is spiraling toward Earth with all the grace of a dropped phone. It requests a location for its imminent crash landing. The onboard system politely informs it the predicted impact zone is a place known to locals as Cut to Earth. Specifically, a low-lit Japanese izakaya where a group of students are deep in semi-coherent conversation. A girl, later identified as Sakurako, is visibly trying to pretend nothing is moving in her backpack. She whispers a question to it, hoping no one notices. Spoiler, someone does. Another student starts talking her ear off about microwave ovens, like casually dropping a conspiracy theory that is sus and probably alien tech. Sakurako replies at a volume only ghosts and bats can hear. Everyone turns to her with that huh energy. She panics, goes full social anxiety mode, and flees to the bathroom. The others shrug it off, writing her off as another shy kid with main character issues. But surprise, Sakurako isn't talking to herself. MuMu is in her backpack, communicating telepathically and throwing out passive-aggressive commentary. According to MuMu, their conversations are on mute for anyone else. Sakurako nods silently. Before she can defend her quietness, MuMu leaps from her bag like a furry ninja, announcing it's going home. Also, it's invisible to everyone else. Naturally, Sakurako has to follow. She arrives at her apartment only to find her microwave. MuMu is mid-autopsy, staring into the microwave's soul and wondering where the beep comes from. It openly admits it has zero clue how to reassemble the thing. Sakurako, already done with this nonsense, demands an explanation. MuMu lets out a low growl, territorial. It insists that taking apart the microwave was essential for understanding it. Sakurako calls it dumb. MuMu, clutching its non-existent pearls, demands a take-back because, excuse you, its species is capable of interstellar travel. Sakurako claps back, if you're so advanced, why can't you reassemble a microwave? MuMu retorts with a classic, just because I can fly a spaceship doesn't mean I can build one argument, comparing it to how humans can use smartphones but can't repair them when they break. Sakurako concedes. Then the lore drop. MuMu explains that back on its home planet, a catastrophic war wiped out all the engineers and smart people. Both sides thought taking out the other's tech support was the path to victory. The conflict escalated until the only survivors were, well, the galactic equivalent of people who microwave foil. They nuked each other's planets over catnip. In the end, only the idiots lived. Their mission to Earth, a planet with Wi-Fi but barely any idea how it works, was simple in theory. Pull a full Dr. Stone reset. Start from scratch, rebuild technology from first principles, and hopefully jumpstart the ruins of their own civilization. Easy, right? Not so much. MuMu, their self-appointed techno-archaeologist, found the whole thing mildly terrifying. It figured that if even a humble Earth microwave had alien-tier engineering baked in, there might be some hope. And MuMu began theorizing. Did it use an external heat source? Magic? Voodoo? The way it heated just the food and not the air felt suspicious. Back home, they had weapons that could vaporize a single target without even toasting the wallpaper. Microwave equals tiny death ray? Enter Sakurako, who clarified, with the energy of someone who's definitely Googled how microwaves work at 3 a.m., that the device heats food from the inside out by jiggling water molecules. The magnetron, the gizmo currently being manhandled by MuMu, pulses microwaves at 2.4 billion vibes per second. MuMu was officially afraid. She casually pointed out that the metal mesh on the microwave door was the only thing stopping them from turning into microwave popcorn. Shortly after, the cat zapped itself trying to investigate further. Sakurako, who now had a mildly electrocuted alien feline as a roommate, took a moment to reflect. Her apartment was full of tech she didn't understand, much like her relationship with smartphones. When they broke, she replaced them. Not because it fixed anything, but because the new model might somehow also fix her inability to talk to people or make friends. Spoiler, it didn't. The next morning, Sakurako got a call from her grandmother. She flipped into fake happy mode like a pro, vaguely referencing some freshman orientation party. While talking, she opened the fridge in search of a snack and found MuMu chilling inside. She tried to close the door and pretend it never happened. MuMu refused. It claimed it was conducting internal reconnaissance and had accidentally locked itself in. Sakurako, having no bandwidth for interstellar nonsense before noon, stared in blank disbelief. The microwave was still broken, and now the cat was squatting in her appliances. She mentally drafted a breakup text to her new roommate and seriously considered changing the locks. MuMuu, now in full desperation mode, pleaded its case. If it couldn't repair Earth tech, other members of its species might show up. Also, its spaceship, described as a missile-shaped structure, was currently embedded in her apartment complex. And yes, it could technically vaporize the entire country. Sakurako, who had just wanted to microwave some leftovers, was not okay. She asked, with a voice cracking under existential pressure, why her house? MuMuu, sensing it had won the argument via sheer nuclear threat, opened a comm line to its home planet. It reported its crash landing on the third planet, Earth, and began documenting the locals' tech level. Vehicles ran on dinosaur juice, waste flowed into rivers. Then came the weird part. A higher-up entity asked about the dominant life form. The entity replied confidently, "It's cats." Humans crammed into metal tubes called trains, staring into the void like sentient ad breaks. They only smiled when looking at cat pictures. Further data showed a woman spending 30 full minutes lurking around a supermarket for a 400 yen bento to drop to half price. But her basket? Nothing but premium cat treats and jerky. She wore a shirt with cat ears. MuMuu, once skeptical, could no longer deny it. Earth was not a planet of humans. It was the planet of the cats. Back at the apartment, MuMuu hit Sakurako with a curveball. How does a refrigerator even work? Sakurako, a modern scholar of the scrolls of Google, explained that refrigerators don't create cold. They just evict heat like a toxic roommate. Heat gets absorbed from the food, rerouted through pipe work like Heat Train Express, and dumped outside. MuMuu, curious and mildly impressed, pointed out that yeah, the outside of the fridge was kind of toasty. She went on, giving a surprisingly lucid TED talk about heat exchangers and radiators, likening it all to a spray can turning frosty after too much use. It sounded scientific enough that it might have fooled a freshman. MuMuu, however, asked the obvious. Do you even know what you're saying? Sakurako admitted she was operating on borrowed internet wisdom and had reached her intellectual cooldown timer. MuMuu suggested they relocate to the university cafeteria. At the cafeteria, MuMuu surveyed the line of students queued like NPCs waiting for their feeding quest to trigger. It found the whole concept, humans converting matter into energy via ingestion, almost offensively primitive. It predicted portion size rage would be the next reason for war. Historically plausible. Sakurako, ever the realist with a sharp tongue, internally noted the irony. Bold claims coming from a species that managed to Thanos snap itself out of existence through war. When asked about its own food source, MuMuu casually revealed it photosynthesized. Sunlight straight to fuel. No cooking, no dishes, just that good old biochemical flex. Sakurako, now low-key impressed, wondered aloud why a species so superior would go full extinction. MuMuu's answer was simple. They fought over sunny spots. Literal sunbathing disputes ended the world. Meanwhile, a student, Miwa Samazu, noticed Sakurako seemingly having an in-depth conversation about cats with no one. Sakurako panicked and pretended she was on a phone call. Miwa, unfazed, strolled over and asked a favor. Could Sakurako sit in on a class she wasn't even enrolled in for Miwa? Again? Sakurako, a professional pushover, agreed. Miwa thanked her and dragged some poor guy off to a dark room, clearly to engage in the academic tradition of stress relief. MuMuu, unbothered and observant, noted that Sakurako got glitchy around humans, then asked if she'd be ordering curry again. She explained it was cheap and filling. MuMuu sampled the dish, declared it spicy, and internally marked it as slaps. Later, something clicked in Sakurako's brain. A memory of sweating with her grandmother. Charming, yes, but more importantly, relevant. She realized that sweat works like biological air conditioning. The sweat evaporates, heat dissipates, and boom, cooling. She called it the latent heat of vaporization. MuMuu gently touched her hand to confirm, yep, she was indeed chilling, literally. Then came the public humiliation arc. Miwa reappeared, high on entitlement, demanding to know why Sakurako ghosted her favor. She yelled loud enough to make the vending machines wince, called Sakurako useless. Honestly, from someone with a forehead that could double as a billboard, Sakurako tried to apologize. Miwa mocked her. Couldn't hear you. Speak up, which triggered flashbacks like she'd hit Sakurako's trauma playlist on shuffle. High school memories. The countryside transfer student stigma. Girls laughing behind hands. The usual. Moral of the scene, never let people get comfy disrespecting you. They will never stop. Miwa kept going, even tried to peer pressure her into dropping out. That's when the plot twist walked in. The guy she dragged off earlier? Yeah, turns out he wasn't down for mean girl cosplay. He poured water on her. Not metaphorically, literally. Said her vibe was gross and that he didn't want to sleep with someone who treated others like that. Miwa short-circuited. Sakurako, being Sakurako, still tried to apologize, but the guy, Akihiro, shut it down. He said it was their fault for taking advantage of her. Then he did the anime cool guy exit, only to awkwardly shuffle back 2 steps just to tell her cat was cute. He starts petting her cat like it's a stress ball with fur, and Sakurako immediately goes tomato mode, visibly flushed, clearly distressed, and deeply regretting every life decision that led to this moment. Ever the concerned alien houseguest, registers her rising body temperature and casually recommends dissipating the heat via latent energy transfer. Later, back at the apartment, she tries to redirect the educational chaos by rubbing the cat's paws together. She explains that this creates warmth, a concept known as frictional heat. MuMuu, absolutely losing its digital marbles, treats this like the scientific equivalent of discovering fire. It immediately gears up to contact headquarters. Sakurako gets a polite thank you as MuMuu earnestly declares this moment as a win for the future of its species. Sakurako mutters that the experiment was really just for her own benefit. She catches herself mid-mumble, but it's too late. MuMuu, ever the unsolicited confidence booster, tells her it can hear her perfectly fine and gently implies that humans might just be bad listeners. The episode wraps with Sakurako thinking back to the part where she got publicly chewed out earlier. With the emotional damage still fresh, she decides not lie to her grandmother this time. She types out a text. No, she hasn't made any friends at university yet, but yes, she now has a weird roommate. The episode opens with Sakurako seated in a lecture hall, pretending to focus as the professor drones on about something vaguely academic. While her eyes face forward, her ears catch the sound of classmates behind her chatting away like it's a podcast she didn't subscribe to. At lunch, she eats outside alone again, quietly unwrapping her convenience store sandwich while others laugh over bento boxes and group selfies. On the way back, she spots Miwa turning up the charm on an older student, full-on NPC flirting mode unlocked, probably farming validation XP. Later that day, Sakurako is back behind the counter at a local convenience store. She lets out a sigh. Another day, 0 friend points earned. The plot, the duo from the previous day, strolls into the store. Sakurako and the girl, Miwa, clock each other instantly. The air turns thick with mutual recognition and mild cringe. Sakurako bows slightly, defaulting to her usual timid setting. Miwa struts up with the energy of someone about to fake apologize, just to cause more emotional damage. Then not so subtly brags about going to karaoke with friends, casually expressing regret over not inviting Sakurako, like that was ever on the table. Caught off guard, Sakurako tries to dodge the discomfort by pointing out she's on the clock. Miwa, playing the classic sorry what game, leans in with performative concern and forces Sakurako to repeat herself. Thankfully, Akihiro steps in to make a purchase. He ushers Miwa out of the store, but not before she shoots her shot again, inviting him back to her room under the completely innocent pretense of playing tic-tac-toe. Akihiro declines, opting instead to walk home solo. Cut to her apartment, where MuMuu, her uninvited alien roommate, is crouched over a vacuum cleaner like it's a sacred artifact, marveling at Earth's tech with the same reverence people reserve for unboxing the newest iPhone. Naturally, he wants to learn how it works. Sakurako casually mentions she actually prefers the newer Cyclone-type vacuums over her current paper bag model. The word cyclone sparks something in MuMuu. She explains it's the kind of vacuum that slurps up everything without losing suction, even citing a wild TV ad where it inhaled a 500 yen coin like it was a snack. MuMuu, now suspicious, asks if her room is really that gross. Sakurako replies that admitting to such a thing would basically be a public L, like declaring to the world she's a certified slob, but this only ignites her rage. She fires back, blaming the chaos of the apartment on him. A valid argument considering he crash-landed into her life like a chaotic Google Calendar invite. Panicked, MuMuu accuses her of robbing him of his freedom. Then, he drops the bit to explain that his time is limited, 1 year to be exact. Enough time to fix his world or everything goes to hell. That grabs Sakurako's attention. MuMuu speaks, for once without theatrics, about the loss of his home world. His people now survive in a fragile temporary colony, and if his mission fails, they'll have no choice but to invade Earth, like full-on space war levels of desperate. The weight of 1 million lives sits on his shoulders. It's heavy, and for once, even he seems to understand that. Sakurako stands there, reeling. She's now involved with a species that can build invisible spaceships. Still, a thought occurs to her. Does she seriously have to teach this himbo cat how to operate a vacuum cleaner just to prevent interstellar conflict? MuMuu notices the terrified look on her face and finally cuts to the chase. Can you teach me how the vacuum works? No pressure or anything, just the fate of humanity riding on Vacuum Maintenance 101. MuMuu, ever the hands-on learner and perhaps a bit too eager, asks for permission to dismantle the vacuum cleaner. Before Sakurako can even blink, he breaks it, just by looking at it. Peering into the discarded dust bag, MuMuu comments on the sheer amount of garbage it's hoarded over time. It doesn't take long for him to deduce the vacuum's basic anatomy. Motor meets fan. Sakurako, trying to salvage the educational moment, points out the red and yellow tapes wrapped around the vacuum's power cord. MuMuu takes a shot in the dark, guessing that the red tape marks the end and the yellow is some sort of caution zone. Not quite. Sakurako corrects him. Yellow tape marks the ideal cord length for use. Getting into full-on TED Talk mode, Sakurako draws an analogy to water filtration systems. She explains that just as water flows through filters to remove gunk and strain it through a paper bag and filters, all very gross, all very effective. Meanwhile, she discreetly hides the manual behind her back. When she's caught, she sheepishly apologizes, but MuMuu doesn't care. He still can't read. That somehow makes her feel better, like she's useful. This kicks off a makeshift study montage featuring a lot of pointing, nodding, and occasional circuit poking. At one point, MuMuu randomly scratches himself mid-lesson like he's buffering in real time. Sakurako continues, noting that while the vacuum filters most of the dirt, ultrafine particles like pollen, dust mites, and unfortunately bacteria and viruses still sneak through. His mood does a full 180, suddenly panicking as he realizes that Earth's deadliest weapons aren't nukes or human incompetence, but ancient invisible murder specks called germs. Sakurako, trying not to laugh but also low-key concerned, reminds him that being an alien probably disqualifies him from most health insurance plans. Sakurako wishes she had more knowledge about appliances, if only to help MuMuu better navigate his daily crises. Right on cue, her eyes catch a flyer taped haphazardly to the wall. It advertises a free appliance pickup service, promising that broken items may be revived through repair. But Sakurako sees an opportunity. Fix the broken, learn the mechanisms, maybe score a rice bowl or two. Big W. The next day, she and MuMuu head out to the university club dorms. The building they arrive at looks like it's one fire hazard away from collapsing. The moment Sakurako steps in, the student population loses it. A dozen club guys instantly flock to her, each trying to pitch their club like it's Shark Tank. Some end up wrestling over her attention, which she mentally notes is 100% her fault for not being more specific. Eventually, she manages to squeak out her request for directions to the Human Regeneration Research Society. Right then, there's a boom loud enough to rattle everyone's GPA. A fireball explodes from one of the club rooms, sending a cloud of dust and smoke into the hall. Inside the smoky epicenter, Wataru yells at Tomotsu for putting gasoline in a heater. Tomotsu yells back that gasoline shouldn't even be in the building. Logic is not this club's strong suit. While the two continue their domestic, other students leap into action with fire extinguishers like they've done this before. They probably have. Nearby students start loudly complaining about those appliance freaks again. Apparently, this isn't their first fire of the semester. Another wonders aloud if these guys are trying to speedrun the building's demolition. Emerging from the smoke like a discount mad scientist, Tenkubashi, presumably the club president, delivers a monologue straight out of a rejected science documentary. He passionately declares that the history of science is also the history of explosions. He questions what civilization even is without a little combustion. And then, with zero warning, he drops the theatrics and bows deeply, apologizing for the inconvenience with the sincerity of someone used to doing this weekly. Meanwhile, a few female students off to the side complain about the burnt plastic smell still lingering in the air. One of them recognizes Tenkubashi and casually mentions to her friend that he once stalked a girl named Sonoko. The girl in question either doesn't remember or just doesn't care. A full set of parts, each piece cleaned, labeled, and laid out like she was prepping for a very niche art installation. One of the members, who had clearly seen some things, looked like he was having an existential crisis. He muttered something about never having met someone who disassembled a household appliance so thoroughly. Sakurako, mistaking their stunned silence for horror rather than awe, she apologized, rapid fire. But then Tenkubashi knelt down and started inspecting the parts with reverent curiosity. He pointed out with genuine admiration that none of the wires were snapped, not a single one. Sakurako asked to join the Human Regeneration Research Society. Tenkubashi welcomed her like she just brought a mythical artifact. That made 2 new members in a week. Weirdly, both had shown up with cats. Right on cue, as if summoned by the plot, Akihiro, the classmate Sakurako had internally labeled objectively attractive, unfortunately distracting, wandered in. She blinked, totally unprepared to see him here, of all places. Her soul briefly left her body. Akihiro, noticing MuMuu, lit up like a gacha player pulling a 5-star. He immediately leaned down, complimented the cat, and pulled a treat from his pocket, snatched the treat, and bolted like he'd just committed a petty theft. He was halfway through chewing when another cat, yes, another talking cat, ambushed him from around the corner. Tenkubashi blinked and turned to Akihiro, asking about his cat, the one that had been chilling in the club room a moment ago, and he gave MuMuu a choice. Answer wisely, or possibly get unalived. Sakurako was still buffering. Her brain lagged hard trying to reconcile the fact that Akihiro, the same boy she low-key simped over in her literature classes, had just materialized as a member of this engineering club. Reality.exe had stopped responding. Meanwhile, the senior members, when they learned both came from the literature department, lit majors, they noted, often came with a bonus. Female members commented that a girl genuinely into hands-on tinkering was practically a unicorn. Another senior, realizing the upperclassmen were hogging the mic, nudged the two first years to, actually talk to each other. Social anxiety hit like a boss battle. She attempted human conversation, awkwardly referencing a vague previous encounter and thanking Akihiro for what he did. He probably doesn't even remember, she internally screamed. Desperate to pivot, she lobbed a random question about home appliances, instantly regretting it. Akihiro's flat not particularly hit her like a jump scare. Her inner monologue spiraled. Obviously, he hated her. Or worse, didn't care if she existed. But then, plot twist, Akihiro leaned in, whisper-level confidential. He said her full name, Umeyashiki-san, and admitted he had zero interest in appliances. And she was the first to know. Instant serotonin unlock. He remembered her name. They had a secret now. Her thoughts briefly floated to her alien cat companion, MuMuu, wondering what kind of mischief he was up to. Cut to. MuMuu, currently locked in a moral debate with Deshimaru, Akihiro's equally extraterrestrial feline. Deshimaru, exuding galaxy brain elitism, accused MuMuu of fraternizing with inferior species. Read, humans. MuMuu fired back, dragging Deshimaru for being a hypocrite and a cosmic-class snob. MuMuu pointedly reminded him of their species' tragic downfall, one that came from exactly this kind of superiority complex. Touch grass, he essentially told Deshimaru, asking if he'd been radicalized by intergalactic incels. Deshimaru scoffed and called MuMuu a disgrace. And then, in classic cat fashion, they fought. Like, actual cat fight. Meanwhile, Miwa was out playing her own game. She flirted with a senpai from the tennis club. Other clubs were chasing her, but she knew how to keep them all on red. Just then, two balls of cosmic fur barreled through the air mid-slapfest, crashing near her. Naturally, Miwa misread the situation completely, assuming the cats were getting spicy in public. It made her shuffle closer to her senpai, like it was cuffing season. Back in the club room, the seniors announced they were heading out for supplies, leaving the two newbies alone. Sakurako's brain blue-screened at the idea. Alone. With him. Trying to break the silence, Akihiro asked if she knew anything about electronics. Sakurako, still glitching, admitted she had interest but not much skill. To her horror, Akihiro asked her to teach him. Her internal reaction? Girl, be serious. She joined the club because she didn't know squat. Cue her accidentally cutting a charger cord mid-freakout. Akihiro leaned in to help, their positioning now looking very, oops, we fell in love in a wiring lab. Miwa, walking by the window, caught a glimpse. She froze. She'd come to lure Akihiro away for some private time, but what she saw turned her into a live-action betrayal meme. Sakurako, that background character, now tangled up with her top pick, her expression darkened like an anime villain origin flashback. She called out to Akihiro, voice sweet, words sharp. "Let's walk home," she suggested. Akihiro politely declined. Miwa's attention snapped to Sakurako like a laser. Innocent act? Nah. She pegged Sakurako as a manipulative catgirl cosplayer trying to collect Akihiro's genetic loot box. Embarrassed and overwhelmed, Sakurako used the old "gotta find my cat" excuse and dipped. Miwa stared after her with the intensity of a character who just unlocked her revenge arc. Outside, Deshimaru, still in hot pursuit of MuMuu, saw Sakurako and pivoted. Changing tactics like a chess grandmaster, he ran ahead and called for her to follow. A plan was forming. Whatever it was, it definitely involved chaos. Deshimaru, ever the suspicious furball, immediately assumed this was a trap. Determined to follow through with dramatic flair, he launched himself forward, only to get bodied by the automatic door, like face first. The thud echoed with the kind of comedic timing usually reserved for YouTube fail compilations. MuMuu, positively glowing with smugness, announced, mentally of course, that this had been part of his master plan, a true five-head move. As Deshimaru flailed in confusion, wedged awkwardly in the sliding panels, he began to question the betrayal of technology. Why hadn't the doors opened for him? MuMuu launched into a condescending breakdown of how automatic doors work. Something about infrared sensors, reflected beams, and interruption thresholds. And when something walks through the line of sight, the doors open. MuMuu added that fluffy doormats like the one currently under Deshimaru made it even worse. Apparently, door sensors had a bias against anything that looked like a discontinued Beanie Baby. What truly broke Deshimaru wasn't the physics lesson, it was the realization that MuMuu had planned this. Meanwhile, Sakurako, clearly entertained, casually reminded MuMuu that he got clapped by the same doors last week. Deshimaru begrudgingly acknowledged MuMuu's cunning, genius-level intellect, even if he delivered it with the flair of a Reddit mod on a power trip. And then, with all the disdain of a cat who's tasted off-brand tuna, Deshimaru questioned why such a brainiac would waste time talking to a basic human like Sakurako. In his mind, MuMuu should have been engaging in passionate debates with Wikipedia pages, not hanging out with slaves who care for cats. That specific phrasing made Sakurako pause, and then the epiphany hit her like a bootleg anime plot twist. The aliens, they didn't think humans ruled Earth. They thought cats did. Deshimaru, still stuck and now surrounded by students cooing over the chonky cat stuck in the door, hit a new low. Smartphones emerged like weapons. Shutter sounds slashed his pride. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He mentally begged them to stop. Sakurako, either out of pity or secondhand embarrassment, freed him. The crowd left disappointed. Not all of them got pictures. Though he refused to say it out loud, Deshimaru felt grateful, even if she was weird. MuMuu, naturally, had been recording the entire thing. He raised an eyebrow and asked Sakurako why she even bothered saving him. Deshimaru didn't look back, but in his mind, he vowed to repay the debt, even if she dressed like a Tumblr user from 2013. Then, right on cue, Akihiro arrived, still being dragged back to his room by Miwa, who looked like she was about to commit a crime of passion. Akihiro scanned the area and asked where his cat went. Sakurako sprinted up, asking if he was Akihiro's. Akihiro confirmed, thanked her. Sakurako blushed. Somewhere in the distance, Miwa's soul exploded into glittering shards of jealous rage. She stared daggers into Sakurako's back, convinced this was all part of some manipulative master plan. She silently vowed to put a stop to it. Meanwhile, Deshimaru, now riding home with Akihiro in the bike basket like a Studio Ghibli sidekick, watched the boy's gentle expression and decided this human might be worth investing in. Inside a cramped spacecraft that looked like it was held together by duct tape and alien anxiety, MuMuu was freaking out. He screamed for Sakurako, who responded with the groggy irritation of someone who had just fallen asleep after 3 episodes of a true crime documentary. MuMuu, panicking like an unpaid intern, explained that the ship's main systems were in full blackout mode. If they didn't re-establish contact with HQ soon, the rocket would self-destruct. And by self-destruct, he meant kaboom level enough to turn Tokyo into a crater. Sakurako, now very much awake and channeling maximum panic, asked what they could even do. MuMuu, ever the confident chaos gremlin, said there was one person who might help, Wataru Tenkubashi, president of the Human Regeneration Research Society. Sakurako squinted. Who? She practically radiated. MuMuu clarified that Tenkubashi was their club president. Sakurako blinked slowly. It was 5 a.m. She was half in pajamas, and now she was supposed to find some nerd in a science club to prevent Tokyo from becoming DLC-only content? Despite her very justified skepticism, they do in fact manage to locate Tenkubashi. He is inexplicably perched on a dangerously thin railing overlooking a riverbank. Sakurako instinctively considers ghosting the entire situation and pretending she never saw him. Unfortunately, Tenkubashi sees her first and loudly calls her name, followed by a dramatic declaration that he is currently engaged in nothing less than world reformation. Sakurako finds this proclamation not only incomprehensible, but slightly concerning. According to him, this particular incident is just unusually blatant. His gaze shifts to something on the ground. It's garbage. More specifically, a pile of illegally dumped trash. As it turns out, Tenkubashi isn't alone in his Riverside Vigilante cosplay. Another club member, referred to as Rokugo, stands nearby. Tenkubashi inquires whether anything in the pile is salvageable. Rokugo pokes at the television, confirms the LCD is busted, and delivers the verdict. It's trash tier, even by their standards. Tenkubashi theatrically sighs, invoking the limits of the Buddha's mercy, which apparently does not extend to busted electronics. He immediately pulls out his phone and calls the local public safety division to report the illegal dumping, cursing the culprits with the righteous indignation of someone who has absolutely main character syndrome. His wish for them to fall into hell is delivered with the gravitas of a villain monologue. With that, he announces his civic duty fulfilled. It's only then that Rokugo seems to properly register Sakurako's existence, and more importantly, her very obvious pajama-clad state. He raises an eyebrow. Tenkubashi joins in, casually questioning her lack of a bra like he's auditioning to be sued. Sakurako, mortified, tries to cover herself with the sheer power of awkwardness. A transition follows, taking her from riverbank embarrassment to impromptu volunteer work. Sakurako is now part of the club's morning routine, megaphone in hand, making loud public announcements for the Human Regeneration Research Society. Their pitch: free collection and repair of discarded appliances, from TVs and fridges to microwaves and washing machines. Rokugo offers to drive her home since they're doing pickup rounds anyway. This sparks instant internal panic in Sakurako, because there's the minor issue of the alien UFO currently embedded in her apartment building. She improvises an excuse, insisting she'd rather observe their operations longer, completely ignoring her pajamas. Tenkabashi, either encouraging or trying to throw her to the wolves, suggests she try making an announcement herself. Flustered but cornered, Sakurako reluctantly complies. Her voice is unsure, like a new streamer's first time going live, but somehow her low-key delivery and general non-chaotic vibe make her stand out. She actually draws a crowd. Later, Tenkubashi notes, almost suspiciously, that they collected more items than usual. He invites her to observe the sorting and repair process, an invitation also extended to MuuMuu, who accepts with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever in a lab coat. Thus begins Sakurako's crash course in appliance necromancy. Tenkubashi explains that the club repairs these appliances and sells them at university events to fund their activities. Rokugo, meanwhile, starts her off with the power cords. He explains that most problems stem from cords getting crushed, yanked, or otherwise abused like overworked retail employees. With a smirk, he says she's not allowed to leave until she learns how to fix one. This immediately triggers flashbacks of her own cord-murdering mishap from the day before. Rokugo points out a telltale sign. When a cord heats up near the plug, that's where the damage is. He instructs her to cut the cord a few centimeters beyond the visibly stressed section. Sakurako, hands only slightly trembling, makes the cut. Then Tenkubashi steps in, demonstrating how to use a utility knife to separate the two internal wires inside the outer sheath. He shows her how to strip about 3 centimeters of insulation off the wires, exposing the copper strands inside. She copies the motion, carefully doing the same on the second wire. With a replacement plug in hand, Tenkubashi shows her how to disassemble it using a screwdriver, unscrewing the 2 tiny screws inside. Sakurako is instructed to tightly twist the exposed copper strands of each wire, like each end now a tidy little metal noodle, gets wrapped clockwise around one of the terminal screws inside the new plug. Both wires secure, she reassembles the plug casing, hands only slightly trembling with beginner fear. Tenkubashi inspects the finished product like a drill sergeant judging bed corners and gives a nod of approval. He tells her to plug the hairdryer into the outlet and test it. Sakurako complies, half expecting it to explode. She stares at it in awe, fully shook that she, of all people, just fixed a legit electrical appliance. While Sakurako is still riding her wave of beginner's luck, Akihiro strolls into the room. Then, in a move only older brothers and lifelong annoyances can pull off, he asks her why she's still in her pajamas. She flushes. Social battery, instantly drained. At that exact moment, MuuMuu suddenly has a eureka moment. Without a word, he bolts. Back at the apartment, MuuMuu dramatically points to a power outlet in her washroom. According to him, that was the power source for the rocket's camouflage system. He suspects the power cable, which snakes from the bathroom to the rocket like a tripwire in a Home Alone movie, has been damaged, probably crushed by a door thanks to her room's chaotic gremlin core layout. Sakurako, eyebrows doing gymnastics, asks why he chose the one outlet in the most inconvenient location possible. MuuMuu replies with the shrug of someone who hasn't paid rent in their life. All the other outlets were taken, obviously. Between cloaking systems, experimental engines, and mystery tech with blinking lights, there was literally no space left on the grid. After a quick fix, MuuMuu confirms that the system is back online. Tokyo remains not exploded, and life goes on. Then Sakurako opens her latest mail and sees the electricity bill. 700,000 yen, roughly $5,000. Her soul momentarily leaves her body. She stares into the financial abyss, realizing she's now in a committed relationship with debt. In the dead of night, inside the semi-apocalyptic clutter of the Human Regeneration Study Group's club room, Tenkubashi, the club president and full-time tinkerer, was knee-deep in a graveyard of microwave guts. Across town, Kagetsu Sonoko, school idol and effortlessly gorgeous, was mid-rant to her friend about her smartphone's battery performing like it had a death wish. Her public tech crisis summoned 2 opportunistic fanboys who practically tripped over themselves offering their portable chargers like tribute to a queen. Kagetsu accepted one with the kind of polite smile that said, "Thank you, now please go away." Meanwhile, Umeyashiki Sakura, existentially sweating bullets, was at the register clutching an electricity bill that looked more like a small country's national debt. 70,861 yen for 2,440 kilowatt hours. The clerk's dramatic gasp echoed through the store like a death knell, pulling every every customer's attention, including Kagetsu and her wannabe suitors. Back at the clubroom, a now thoroughly humiliated Sakura had returned, her face tomato red and her stomach performing a symphony of betrayal. Her gaze drifted toward the club's emergency stash of meal tickets. Tenkubashi, catching the look, called her out, claiming she was shameless for eyeing their financial lifeline while visibly drooling. Rokugo attempted to mediate by claiming she was probably just on a diet. Tenkubashi didn't buy it. In a grand gesture that began wholesome and veered hard into cringe, Tenkubashi offered her the whole box of meal tickets, but added she'd have to repay with her body. Sakura looked like she was about to uninstall herself from reality until he clarified that he meant manual labor. He then dropped a pile of cheap, plasticky hand mixers on her desk and launched into a patronizing TED Talk about modding them with Hyper Dash Pro motors salvaged from mini 4-bodied racing toys. The goal? Crank up the torque to absurd levels. The process involved unscrewing sneaky screws hidden under stickers, carefully desoldering the old motors, attaching new gears, and soldering the upgraded motors into place. Basically, Robotics 101 meets DIY YouTube tutorial energy. Sakura, trying her best, managed to finish 2 mixers while Tenkubashi nonchalantly completed the other 8. MuMuu, the alien cat thing, watched judgmentally from the corner before Sakura could ask what these Frankenstein mixers were for, a muscle-bound student burst in like a walking protein ad. He casually performed pull-ups mid-conversation, explaining the mixers were now capable of blending his sludge-thick protein shakes. Normal mixers just couldn't compete. To prove it, he whipped up a dense, frosty swirl with all the grace of a fitness influencer on a deadline. He left with his jacked squad, all of them hitting synchronized flexes on their way out. Next up, Tenkubashi tasked Sakura with modding a mixer to spin gin tape, silver confetti streamers, for concert effects. 2 girls from a student performance circle came to collect it, thrilled with the result. From there, the mixers proved to be the Swiss Army knife of motorized gadgets. Sakura rewired some to wind bobbins for the Handicrafts Club, roll-up mats for the Rhythmic Gymnastics Club, and rewind film reels for the Film Research Society. Each mod earned the club a fat stack of meal tickets. Sakura's eyes practically sparkled with capitalist glee. As they basked in their unexpected entrepreneurial boom, Tenkubashi waxed philosophical about the science of motors and generators, basically how you can flip the script and turn movement back into electricity. Sakura, fully inspired and probably hallucinating from hunger, imagined building a mega mixer strong enough to power her house and cancel her electric bill. The dream? Escape to the countryside, live off-grid, and leave the Tokyo Electric Company on read. Her fantasy was abruptly canceled when she noticed MuMuu attempting to build his own turbo mixer, a DIY project with catastrophic potential. Sakura bolted to stop him, only to realize that Tenkubashi was fully distracted by another build and Rokugo was deep in slacker mode, pretending to be helpful while contributing absolutely nothing. Later, Sakurako helps the club out by moving heavy material. Tenkubashi has another rant about the importance of science and inventions like the microwave, infuriating the librarian as he's repeatedly told the guy not to be loud here. But Tenkubashi ignores him. Tenkubashi feels it's his life mission to dismantle and rebuild home appliances in the hopes of making a big discovery for improvement. As he's talking about how important the library is for this, Miwa comes from one of the dark sections of the library thinking this place would be perfect for adult fun. She stops staring at Sakurako, noticing she's with Akihiro again, and now some other guy, believing that Sakurako must be what they call an otaku princess, with her running out the library to formulate a plan. As Tenkubashi is going on another rant, he spots a familiar face, being Kagetsu. The shock of seeing his crush makes his brain malfunction as he bumps into a bookshelf, but this causes a domino effect, with the same group of boys trying to offer Kagetsu a charger, but she denies them and goes to class. Sakurako notices the way the president looks at the woman, so she goes to ask Rokugo about it. But Rokugo denies the thought, deeming the president too weird for love. There, Tenkubashi unveiled his latest invention, the mobile device remote charging system Babel. It consisted of a large dish antenna and a rifle-like device designed for long-range wireless smartphone charging. He explained the complex mechanics involving a special phone case with a sending coil that, when targeted by microwaves from his device, would generate a magnetic field, inducing a current in the phone's internal receiving coil to charge the battery. Hearing this, Rokugo whipshires to Sakurako as he believes this proves his point that the president isn't in love, but is soon proven wrong when flat out says this is so she won't have to worry about her phone battery. When Rokugo sees who he's talking about, he's so shocked her nearly falls off the roof. When Sakura asked if this elaborate setup was for Kagetsu, The Rokugo notes this will depend on her phone case, a notation Tenkubashi agrees with, but says he has it covered as he's already switched out the case with an identical one. Noting how much he put into and was willing to go from this, everyone labels him a stalker. Tenkubashi gives the signal to turn on the device, and they flip the switches on the microwave. Using a rangefinder, Sakura confirmed Kagetsu's phone was 47 meters away. Tenkubashi, confident that distance, gravity, and wind were no obstacles for his electromagnetic wave technology, took aim. But the first shot turned out to be much more dangerous as it evaporated all the water from her cup, looking more like an explosion, making the club members uncomfortable as that could have been really bad. Like kill someone bad. But Tenkubashi isn't concerned and is just trying to think of ways to improve his aim. At this, Rokugo has heard enough. This creepy obsession he has for her has gone too far. Furious at the near disaster and Tenkubashi's reckless actions, put him in a headlock and orders Sakura and Akihiro to get the rope and tie him up. Rokugo sighs at the gauged and tied up Tenkubashi as he knew he recognized that woman, as it was her. Sakurako questions if he know her, and Rokugo clarifies that Kagetsu was voted the previous year's Keikyu University Miss Contest winner, known as Smiling Beauty. She was always surrounded by a flock of men trying to win her attention. Their club had assisted with the contest's sound system and attended the after-party, where Tenkubashi had first seen Kagetsu struggling with her phone's battery life. Tenkubashi was trying to make her a fast-charging battery case that could protect her phone and give her 8 additional hours of battery life. It was a great deal, but the problem was Tenkubashi was the one selling it. As he was describing the process, he kept referencing male and female computer parts. If you know computers, you understand what he's saying, but if you don't, it comes across as weirds, as he's asking her how many male sex partners she's had and how he can give her one. So yeah, he was not welcomed. With Sakurako knowing all too well, Tenkubashi sucks at talking to women. Kagetsu made an expression that's never been seen before, and her fanboys beat him up after seeing this reaction. As he's explaining this story, Tenkubashi managed to escape. With him on the roof trying this extremely dangerous plan again, this time he succeeds, but at a price. Suddenly, the entire campus plunged into darkness due to a power outage. At first, the students are afraid it's a terrorist attack, but then the club students speak up, believing Tenkubashi is behind this. With this, they now have a reason to go beat him up, so a mob of people run after him. They have him cornered on the roof, but to their shock, he jumps. The trees break his fall, and he takes off running like a deadbeat father. Meanwhile, Kagetsu runs outside to see Tenkubashi, laughing as he waddles away running, not believing he made such a commotion around school just to give her phone an additional 3%. MuMuu sees her reaction to this and believes that Tenkubashi might actually have a chance with such a beauty.